It was not supposed to end this way. Not for the players who packed their bags. Not for the men who stayed. And certainly not for a clubhouse that had spent weeks trying to convince itself that everything was under control. But that is the thing about turmoil. It does not ask for permission. It does not wait for the right moment. It arrives without warning, and it forces every person in that room to decide, quickly and without the luxury of hesitation, who they really are. Dave Roberts made his decision late Tuesday night. And by the time the rest of the baseball world woke up the following morning, the Los Angeles Dodgers looked like a different team. 3 players were gone. 2 were back. And at the center of all of it, as if the universe had decided that one man must always carry the weight of every Dodger story, was Shohei Ohtani. To understand what happened, you have to understand what the Dodgers were before this moment. They were not struggling in the way that broken teams struggle. They were not losing games they should have won by embarrassing margins. They were not publicly fractured. From the outside, the picture looked more or less the way it always looks when the Dodgers are involved, composed, calculated, and quietly dangerous. But the people inside that clubhouse knew something different. There were questions about depth. Questions about who could be trusted in the moments when the season shifted from regular to meaningful. Questions about whether certain pieces, talented pieces, professional pieces, were still the right pieces for this particular version of this particular team. Robert sat with those questions. He did not rush. Then he answered them. Kike Hernandez was the first name that surfaced. For those who had watched him over the years, his return carried a specific kind of meaning that statistics alone could not fully explain. He is not the most gifted player the Dodgers have ever had. He is not the one who will be remembered for a single defining swing in a defining October moment. But he understands something about the Dodgers culture, about what is expected, about how the game is supposed to be played in that uniform, that not every player figures out, even after years of trying. When he left, something left with him. Something quiet. Something difficult to name. His return meant that thing came back. Tommy Edman's name arrived shortly after. His story was different. His story was about waiting. It was about sitting at the edge of the group, fully capable, fully prepared, and simply not being able to get his body to cooperate. The injuries that had followed him had not diminished who he was as a player. They had only delayed what everyone who had seen him play already understood. He is fast. He is smart. He makes the right decision before most players have even identified the decision that needs to be made. The Dodgers needed both of those things. And suddenly, they had them again. But alongside those 2 names came 3 others. 3 names that traveled in the opposite direction. No announcement softened it. No carefully worded organizational statement changed what it meant. 3 players received news that most professional athletes spend their entire careers trying to outrun. They were told that this version of this roster, right now, in this moment, did not include them. That is one of the quiet brutalities of this sport. It does not always happen loudly. Sometimes it happens in a small office, in a private conversation, with a handshake that means something completely different than handshakes are supposed to mean. The Dodgers did not make it theatrical. Roberts never does. But the weight of those 3 decisions sat in the air of the clubhouse long after the conversations were finished. Some rooms change when people leave them. This was one of those rooms. And then there was Ohtani. There is always Ohtani. He had not asked to be at the center of this story. He had not manufactured the drama or invited the attention that followed him like a second shadow. But when the Dodgers are in any kind of moment, good, difficult, uncertain, or electric, his name finds its way to the surface. Not because it is forced there. Because that is simply where the current takes it. On the same day the roster moves were announced, Ohtani did something in the batting cage that made the coaches stop what they were doing. It was not a home run. It was not a number on a radar gun. It was a sequence of swings, 3, maybe 4, where everything looked different. Where the timing looked different. Where the approach looked different. Where the version of him that the Dodgers had seen in the early weeks of the season, the version that carried a patience and a precision that felt almost unfair, appeared to have returned after a period of quiet absence. One of the coaches said nothing for several seconds. Then he turned to the person standing next to him. He said, "There he is." That was all. The Dodgers have learned, over the years Ohtani has been with them, that his peaks do not always announce themselves loudly. He does not stand at the top of a hill and wait for the world to notice him. He tends to arrive quietly. A different weight in his stance. A slightly longer pause before he commits. A look in his eyes, when he digs into the box, that tells the pitcher across from him something the pitcher already knows and does not want to know. The slump, if a slump is even the right word for what he had been experiencing, had not been dramatic. The numbers had not collapsed. The at-bats had not turned embarrassing. But there is a version of Ohtani that exists at full power, and those around him had felt, in recent weeks, that they were watching a version running at something slightly less. Like a machine that still functions but is drawing from a different kind of energy. The batting cage session changed that feeling. Roberts, when asked about it later, did not oversell the moment. He did not reach for drama. He described it the way he describes most things, carefully, with the deliberate cadence of a man who has learned that the most important thing you can say in a press conference is usually the most restrained thing. He looked good today. He looked sharp. That's what we want to see. But behind those words, behind that understatement, was something that anyone who has spent time in a Dodgers dugout could read without needing it explained. Relief. The combination of everything, the returns, the departures, the moment in the batting cage, created something in the Dodgers facility on that Tuesday that is difficult to describe without reaching for a word that sounds too large. Energy. Not the manufactured kind. Not the kind that comes from a motivational speech or a whiteboard covered in buzzwords. The kind that comes from a group of professionals who have just felt the shape of their situation change. The kind that arrives when the roster you carry starts to feel like the roster you need. Kike walked back into the clubhouse and the room responded the way rooms respond when someone who belongs in them finally returns. Edman moved through his workout with the quiet urgency of a man who has been waiting too long and is determined not to waste another minute. And Ohtani hit. The three men who left did not make public statements. They did not need to. The sport understands these moments even when it does not speak them out loud. They are professionals. They will find their way to another roster, another opportunity, another chance to prove that the decision made on a Tuesday night in Los Angeles was made too soon. That is how this works. That is always how this works. But right now, on this night, inside this building, the story belonged to the men who stayed. Roberts did not linger on the weight of the decision when he faced the cameras. He had made his choices. He was already thinking about what came next. A reporter asked him directly, was this the version of the roster he had wanted from the beginning of the season? Roberts paused. Not a long pause. Just long enough to choose his words with the precision he always uses when the question is the kind that sounds simple but is not. He straightened slightly in his seat. We believe in this group, he said. All of them. The ones here now. The ones who have been here. We believe in what this team is capable of. He stopped there. He did not need to say the rest. The Dodgers had made their move. The turmoil had arrived and passed in a single night. Kike was back. Edman was back. 3 others were gone. And somewhere in a batting cage in Los Angeles, the best two-way player in the history of baseball had found something in his swing that made a coach stop and stare. There he is. That was all. That was enough.